Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Olympian Manifestation, Michael Del Russi and I will be exploring New Thought, which is actually very ancient. And we agreed to start with affirmations. Then I'm going to start with one that is a modified version of something Marcus Aurelius said. If something proves humanly possible, then I too can attain it. And I firmly believe that, and I tell that to myself very often, and it helps me a great deal. Greetings and welcome, Michael. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm excited to explore, do a deep dive, if you will, into something that I think a belief system that I think really encompasses all spiritual journeys, if you will, and that is New Thought spirituality. So I'm excited. There were many, many wonderful teachers in this field over the decades, and they really opened new doors. So I'm enthusiastic about sharing this with our listeners tonight.
Awesome. You also said that you had an inspirational affirmation to share with our audience.
Yes, and I'm going to share the system that I have developed for myself. What I wanted to talk about leading into that, however, is I firmly believe that the roads to New Thought, for those who maybe, I would imagine most of our listeners have heard of it or somewhat familiar with it. I believe that there's many beliefs connected to New Thought or that lead to New Thought. I think pantheism, I think the law of attraction, obviously, the law of manifestation, the law of assumption, I think the law of expectation, which was taught by almost all of the great spiritual masters throughout the centuries. I think Stoicism plays a part because even with Stoicism, it talks about inner resilience, inner positivity is part of what Stoicism teaches. So some may not think that's connected, has a spiritual connection, but it does. Hermetics, again, hermetics, as above, so below.
As
I
within,
think
so
all of
without.
those, yes, I believe, I think all of those practices, if you will, individually and collectively, lead to the umbrella of New Thought. So, I think that's it's universal consciousness, and I think that's the original religion, if you will, the original religion that encompasses all things, all levels of consciousness, objective consciousness, subconsciousness, and superconsciousness. I think is New Thought. But unfortunately, with the times and the centuries and the development of various religious practices, it's been homogenized, it's been individualized, it's been secularized in some areas. So, but when we step back and really look at it, New Thought is, what is it basically? Well, there's really many definitions, and they're all very similar. New Thought basically is the concept that we're connected to a mental universe. That the universe is mental, and we are expressions of that mentality, of that consciousness. And the roads to what we achieve in terms of three-dimensional existence and multi-dimensional existence are unlimited. But again, that has been somewhat mixed up, if you will, and weakened. That belief has been weakened by denominational religion and what have you. But we are expressions. Basically, New Thought is considered a healing belief, the healing belief that we can heal, that we can affect the physical world with our thoughts, with our beliefs, with our positivity, with our expectations. And it's all secondly, it's the quality of our vibrations, the quality of our vibrations. We are, in essence, an oversouls, if you will. We have a physical body, but as the mystery schools teach us, we also have energetic bodies. And we often forget that. We often forget that. And I know I myself, but if I reminded myself on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis that my energetic body is being affected by how I'm thinking, I mean, in an instant, our whole world can change if we just remind ourselves of that very reality. And we know it's true, we know it's real, but our third dimensional existence, if you will, has a way of, deferring this reality, these spiritual realities. So that's what I learned from the early teachers, who for me were the first, obviously. Anyone who shared this with me would be Ernest Holmes and his definitive textbook, The Science of Mind. The second influence to me would be Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who started Unity, the Unity Centers of Consciousness. And they were the early influencers for me, and still are, by the way, still are. What were the influencers in your life in terms of being introduced or exposed to new thought concepts?
The same that you've encountered. Neville Goddard seems to be, at this particular point, my favorite. He has written much about the power of imagination, and I use my imagination a lot. And some of the ways I use my imagination are very strong manifesting mechanisms. Like, for instance, when I'm working on a big project, I don't worry about how long it will take. I just worry about seeing it complete in my mind, that it's already up and running and it's running perfectly, or it's happening perfectly, or whatever. And then as I move through life in linear time, I pull together what it'll take to bring that picture into reality. And I never know what pieces are going to come when, or what information will come when. I don't know that it's not my responsibility to know that. It's just to become aware of what the universe is giving me to actualize this vision. And I find that, again, sometimes it'll take 5 years or longer. But if I see something and if I believe in it, and I know that if it's humanly possible, then I too can do it, even as a human and not as a energy being or a co-creator of the universe. Um, Even if I just think in terms of being human and having a mind and an imagination, then it's something I can do too. And I have perfect faith in that, and I just allow things to unfold until what I've thought comes into being. And sometimes it'll come through very mysterious ways that aren't really anticipated. If I wasn't looking to create a picture, I'd let pass by. But once I know what the picture's like in its fullness, it becomes easier to make choices that'll move you closer to that picture.
Well, every word you're speaking right now is part of what some of the great masters in New Thought taught. Charles Fillmore and Ernest Holmes really taught the same thing. Even Emmett Fox.
Yes, the 7-day mental diet.
Remember Emmett Fox? He was one of the key pioneers in the New Thought field.
Yes, I used to do the 7-day mental diet. He published a little pamphlet, The 7-Day Mental Diet. And
really,
when I was a teenager, that was one of my first experimentations with the mind, to try to think positive for an entire week. And it was not easy.
no, yeah, but that's the challenge. That's the challenge I personally have found, and I think I could speak with some authority, because by nature, especially in my early years, I wasn't a very positive person. I wasn't a very confident person. So when I was introduced to New Thought, I was introduced to New Thought by my voice teacher, believe it or not, who was a mystic, and she was into metaphysics for many years. She was a Jewish mysticism. She was started in her early years with Jewish mysticism and then moved on to New Thought. he introduced me to Science of Mind. We originally attended the Center for Spiritual Healing up in Morristown. And I was immediately enamored by the people, by the teacher there. She was wonderful. In fact, she just retired. Someone else has now taken the reins up there at the Center for Creative Thinking in Morristown. That's where I was first influenced and learned. I had no idea what unity consciousness was. I really didn't know what New Thought was. And once I purchased the definitive textbook, Science of Mind, I read it, and I said, it opened up new worlds. And as one person said to me, he said, who was studying, also knew was studying this, he said, this is so freeing. This kind of believing is so freeing. It frees your mind. And she put it perfectly. There's a freedom that comes with just accepting the reality that all of this did not happen by accident. The way we think, the way we wonder, the way we ponder, the way we reach for the stars, the way we're tempted. We're called to reach for the stars, to reach for something more beyond our physicality. That in itself is, indeed, very freeing. And that's just a small part of what New Thought does. So when you look at what all of these teachers, they tried to teach us this, that there's another essence within us, a universal creative essence, and we can tap into it. One of the things, Ernest Holmes said it very simply, and of course some in the denominational valley would probably not completely agree with the way he put this, but I like it. He said, there is a power in the universe and we can use it. Very simply put, there is a power in the universe and we can use it. I love the way he phrased that. Because the power, I like it. And it unchains you. It unchains your spirit. You honor the vastness and the reality of the power that's there. But then you also accept the reality that power is also within us. And we can probably do much more and accomplish much more than we ever thought we were capable of by simply accepting that there is a wholeness. But, I'll tell you something else that I personally have experienced, and this is in all areas. And I'll speak very frankly about it. Whether it be the metaphysical field or the denominational religions, or if you're a pagan and you're involved in various pagan practices, and there's no question in my mind that, and I'm not an expert in all forms of paganism by any means, but I know this. There is a truth in what makes paganism flow. And the truth is that there is the power there, the power of the earth, the feminine, as well as the masculine. All of that is very important to study, to unfold within our lives. But most of us, especially those who are so totally encompassed in denominational beliefs, and they don't see life this way. They don't see our planet this way. But all of this is part of the wholeness of what we're trying to express in our lives. But it's not easy. But once as you said, once we dwell and we're encompassed with New Thought, once we're involved in it and we study and realize, this is so, this young lady, the way she put it to me, she put it correctly. This is so freeing. And New Thought is very freeing because it opens up the pathway to, well, what can we do? What can we accomplish by believing this way? And whether it's, I don't care what it is. All of it matters. The law of expectation, the law of assumption, we're assuming that it's already here. What we need in our lives, the lives we want to touch and create, they're already here. We just have to assume it and expect it. So all of those practices, attraction, manifestation, assumption, expectation, can really turn a nighttime into day when it comes to seeking the creative source. So that's what I firmly believe about New Thought. And it's life changing and life enhancing. And every time you get up, you're faced with some challenges now. I'm faced with some challenges. I had some x-rays and I discovered that I have bone spurs and severe arthritis in both shoulders, which did not come as a surprise to me. But that was just recently reconfirmed, if you will. And so I know that. And but you know what? I also know that through the power of New Thought, I have definitely lessened my pain. The pain is no worse now than it was 2 years ago. In fact, some days it's actually a little better. And my shoulders feel more free. Once I take in white light, once I take in energy, and once I affirm that the pain is less, that the obstructions are less, it works. I've seen it work. I've experienced its results. So, and it's all coming from where? It's coming from, well, it's coming from the universe, but it's also coming from within. There is an energy around us. That's how we interpret it. So that's why I think New Thought spirituality is so exciting. And I think it should be studied by everyone. Universal consciousness, I think, should be studied by everyone. Well, no matter what spiritual denomination you're aligned to, or that's fine. I don't believe in. I believe everybody has an open door, but I think that, and I wish I would have taught this. I would have been taught this when I was younger, much younger. What is spirituality? What is it really? Well, it's universalism. It's taking in the reality that we're all part of one great whole, one great picture. And it is amazing to me how, there could be so many different pathways to reaching for the stars, to reaching for the answer. And yet the simplest answer that we are at the end of the day, we're all connected to one universal whole, one mental universe, somehow eludes many people. I don't know why that is. Of course, we know that spiritual politics plays into it. We know that. We know what's involved there. That's a whole history in itself. And it's too bad because I think New Thought opened up starting in the 19th century, but even before that, so many minds that's where the mystery schools also. What did the mystery schools teach? Each had their own practices and rituals, but at the end of the day, that there's a power within, and that we are connected to the power without, and that where we go from there, the road is really unlimited. But we, human beings, being what we are, we've put limits on it, because we want to control the thoughts of others, and that's where I think the obstructions came. How do you feel about that in terms of the history of New Thought and even the mysticism, many forms of mysticism that we've been exposed to, and over the centuries? Do you feel that way as well? That this is where the restrictions
I believe
have
in
come?
universalism. I'm particularly resonant with the Olympian pantheon and the Olympian mythology and the history of the Olympians and so forth in our popular culture. But that's after a lifetime of experimenting with different things. I was raised Greek Orthodox, so I received training in a Greek Orthodox parochial school for a grade school,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been to Greece a number of times. I studied Zoroastrianism. I studied early Christianity. I studied other Abrahamic traditions. I studied Hinduism. I studied Jainism and Buddhism. I studied various native forms of spirituality. I studied
Mm-hmm.
the spirituality of the North in Europe and the West in Europe and
Mm-hmm.
all around the Mediterranean Sea. And some of those I spent years researching them. but it
Hmm.
brought me back to what I was most resonant with, and to me that was the Olympianism. But I discovered
Right.
what the ancients said was true, that the esoteric and the exoteric are there. The exoteric
Hmm.
means the outside, the exoterico, from the word outside, like in outsiders and so forth. And these are the stories and the ceremonies and the rituals and the beliefs of a particular bunch of people, however they choose to define themselves. And
Hmm.
everything's reflected in what they believe about their culture. And then there's the
Hmm.
exoteric, like esoterico, which means the inside, and that's
Hmm.
pretty much the same in every religion. And the
Hmm.
Phoenicians were one of the first to realize that through their extensive trade empire. And they did. They
Hmm.
seeded the known world at the time with these views that took root and evolved in native soils. And then later on,
Hmm.
during the age of Alexander, this was rediscovered when the communication was opened up again through all the people in one world under one system of or one over system of government, and people were able to communicate these things. So I am very open to exploring other people's ways and listening to what they're experiencing. But I also want to undo the curse of Babel, because with the Tower of Babel, humanity spoke the same language, and all of a sudden they didn't. And we've had wars over the proper phraseology and proper terminology where we're talking about the same thing, but because we're using different cultural models, it seems like we're talking
Hmm.
about something different. So some people's gods become the devils of others, some people's devils become the god of others. And that's happened historically, and we've seen it happen time and again. Um,
Hmm.
so that's what's been causing untold mischief on our world and untold evil in our world as well. And if we went back to being open to each other's spiritual journeys, which many people gladly share, I think we'd realize that we're much more alike than we are different, and we'd be able to listen and learn from everybody rather than just an approved group of people.
Hmm. But I think in some ways, and you made a good point, perhaps it was inevitable in the history of mankind, if you will, that with the cultural differences, we're also going to be uh, spiritual differences in terms of ritualistic beliefs and or interpretations of just what the universe is. Uh, uh, so some of these conflicts, I would imagine, are inevitable. But here we are in 2025, and I'll tell you, a lot of these differences are still very aggressive in some areas. Uh, there was an author that was also very influential to me that really was New Thought, but was also paganistic in some way. And that was an author by the name of Ted Andrews. Do you remember Ted Andrews?
Yes, I remember Ted Andrews.
Yeah, he wrote a book called The Occult Christ, and boy, I'll tell you, that book was really, I found that book to simply be very exciting, not only from a spiritual aspect, but an intellectual aspect as well. He covered just about everything in that book. And to me, he painted Christ as perhaps a shaman, which Christ could have easily been interpreted as a shaman in his lifetime, and what he did, what he performed, the healings, the rituals, the Christian rituals, and what have you. And I don't know if you read that book or not, but he more or less depicted how the universal, the feminism, the masculinity of humanity, how it's all part of who we are. It was an excellent book, and that book also opened my eyes early on to, hey, there's a lot more to this. There's a lot more to Christ than I was taught, in the Catholic environment, if you will. With the somewhat stringent rules and that we were exposed to and the rituals at that time. And here I'm reading about the occult Christ, the hidden teachings, and all everything else that was involved. But again, we know that when Jesus walked the earth, for the most part, there were no denominations, if you will. His his disciples were just considered Nazarenes, or the way, if you will. Some of his simply called his teachings the way. They didn't really know how to define him for the longest period of time. But the point I'm making is all of these bias and prejudices. Some people get very angry, and my belief is, if we're worshiping from a universal perspective, and no matter what scriptural book you're reading as well, if you worship from a universal perspective, all of this does not have to exist. Because again, at the end of the day, whether you worship saints or you don't, whether you believe in angelic beings or you don't, whether you allow for reincarnation or you don't, there is one source. There's one source. I doubt very much there's multiple sources all taking a part in creating the systems as we now define them in the third dimension. We can all agree there's one basic source as far as how our bodies function, how our brains function. Now, there's many differences, branches along the way, but I think that's the ultimate goal. I think as we live our lives and go on and move toward the twilight of our years, I think the ultimate goal is, as one teacher said, we're all made of the same stuff. It may look a little different, it may be packaged a little different, but at the end of the day, we're all made of the same stuff. I think Deepak Chopra coined that phrase. So I think that's what it comes down to. But, the exciting thing is some of the beliefs that you just covered, some of the practices that you just mentioned. It's exciting to see how others are believing and what the other paths that believers are taking, speakers are taking. Another favorite of mine was Yogananda. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
Yes, I'm familiar. It's been years since I dipped into some of the waters that you're talking about. It's been decades, but I remember them fondly.
Yeah, he had the Realization Society. I know they're still together. They're still very much active. Yogananda was an amazing teacher. He tried to show the similarities, the parallels between Hindu thought and Christian thought, and he did a very good job with it. Instead of creating differences, he showed that there was a parallel between what Jesus taught and what some of the great mystics, Hindu mystics, taught during their times. And again, he did a very good job of unveiling that, if you will. So he was another great teacher. But all of those beliefs, I believe, are connected. Paganism, pantheism. It's because at the end of the day, it's all about recognizing what the earth is teaching and the wholeness that, ironically, keeps us together, even as we've tried so vigorously to separate ourselves from each other. Is that the way you mainly see the denominational religions today, or through the centuries? Do you pretty much see it? I see it as a struggle for power, really. It's all about, at the end of the day, power and manipulation.
That is very true. And what I'm trying to accomplish through the podcast, to whatever extent we can pull it off, is to get people to talk comfortably about their beliefs together, even though the beliefs are different. So that, just like when we talk about bodybuilding and exercise, everybody has different beliefs about diet and what the correct diet should be and why. Everyone has different beliefs about the value of weights or aerobics, and people's beliefs change over time as they experience different things, and people are willing to try out what the other person's suggesting, see if it works for them, so that there's a respect for somebody in their path, and knowing that not everything works for everybody, but something might work for you for now. So it might be worth trying. I tried several times, and I will always try as long as I draw breath to get people to talk about their spiritual experiences and religions in the same way, because I too believe that the
Mhm.
human journey is basically the same in essence. It might differ in its details depending on who you are, when you are, and what you happen to be raised with in terms of beliefs about the reality you find yourself in. But we can learn from listening to each other and seeing that there are many different ways to experience life, and some of these ways produce good results. Some of these ways produce results you wouldn't want to duplicate in your life, and to learn that way openly without having to hide your beliefs behind ritual or behind ceremony or behind parables.
Well, absolutely right. It's still, as I'm listening to you, uh, depicting these conflicts or these differences, as you will, that can exist. I'm amazed myself. I know what I've experienced in various Christian churches. The denominations are endless because I've been to just about all of them at one time or another. And it amazes me that how angry some people get. If I mean,
Yes,
if you, I'm sure you've experienced this also. It's absolutely fascinating because many of these individuals are intelligent people with good careers. But if you speak from a universal perspective, that we're all made of the same stuff, and you approach Christianity as an example, just as you use Christianity as an example, in that way, you're frowned upon in many religious temples because they just don't there's a certain outline, if you will, of behavior and reverence that that particular denomination expects you to follow. But Jesus did not teach that. You know, he taught very clearly, grace, grace is in the what comes to be. And yes, he violated many Jewish doctrines and rules, and that's why he was assassinated. But he did it because he came from a space of grace, what is in the heart, which is universal. Grace is universal. And that, I think, is our ultimate goal. We spend a lifetime, some of us, seeking that source known as grace. And once we achieve that, there's no reason to get angry at anyone for their spiritual beliefs. Be open to it. Listen to what they have to say, because at the end of the day, the pot of gold, is universal consciousness, is recognizing that we're all part of one great mentalism, one great mind. We don't know what that is. Everybody, there's many, many different area cultures, and that they feel they have the answer. I feel that no one has the answer except the fact that our 3D evidence seems to indicate that we're all made of the same particles. They're all made of the same stuff. We may look different, act different, practice different spiritual rituals, if you will, but we're all made of the same stuff. That much has been validated, at least here in this dimension. And I think another aspect of and I think those of us who practice mystical Christianity, although I'm using that term, but I don't really consider myself any one practice per se. I think that's what Jesus tried to teach us, that we're part of a greater whole. But some of the practices that you mentioned, they also try to teach that in many ways. And some evidently were listening. But as we entered into the 16th, 17th century, 18th century, there's many who weren't listening. And it was all vying for power over our fellow humans, if you will. And that's what we have today. But I notice in many spiritual, many places of worship, even now, they're starting to open up a little bit more as far as the creative mind. They're cautious, especially in the Christian denominations. They're cautious about it, but you can do much more with the creative mind. Now, some ultra conservatives, of course, They don't like this type of teaching. They don't like this idea because, again, we're reaching out further out beyond what any denomination may influence us with. And for some, that they're threatened by that. But that is the source. There is a source. And I believe that all of us are walking toward that source, both here on a multi-dimensional level. I saw something, and I still have it, that was amazing to me in a church in Europe somewhere. I don't know exactly where. It was a video. There's this dog. He's in the Catholic Church. Catholic. I don't know where it was. I think it was Yugoslavia, but I'm not sure. And the dog is looking up at the statue of the Virgin Mother. And this dog will not take his eyes off that statue for 1 minute and is barking and barking and barking. And people in the background are trying to call him off. He would not leave. His eyes were totally fixated on the statue of that Virgin. And he would not, and he's barking, and not in an aggressive way, but like he's talking to the statue. He's talking to the relic, if you will. And that dog would not move. I still have the video on my Facebook. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, this can't be just the dog. Just common sense would tell me what's calling to this animal, who in themselves are so innocent in the channels of their minds. What's calling to him or her? And so the point I'm making is, regardless of what source you come from, what belief system you adhere to, don't close our minds. Our minds should be open to what others believe and others are practicing, and see what they reveal, see what they have to say. Because there are many shades of beliefs, many different colors. But it's always surprising to me how literally violent some people will get. If Catholicism is a cult, and if you believe in paganism, certain pagan practices, those are cults, and on we go. And it's so silly. And in so many ways, it's held our civilizations back, if you will, thinking that way.
I believe that as well. And I was lucky in my family. It became very clear at a young age that I was more tuned to Olympus than I was to the heaven and hells of the Orthodox Christian faith. And they, had a little bit of difficulty with it in the beginning, but then they accepted that I would go to Olympus after I died, but that their God would let me visit because it would be heartless for God to deny visiting. And she was sure that Zeus would say okay to their visiting me in my heaven. So that I found that it was a very healthy way of looking at it. And these days, I very much like religions like the Universalist Unitarians and other such churches, and even the I Am movement, which is a neo-theosophy. Now, the neo-theosophy has sects in it now too, in denominations. There's a bunch of different ones, and they have slightly different beliefs, and they ascribe various degrees of truth and falsity to the teachings of the other ones. But again, that seems to be human nature. Um, but generally, the belief is that this existence that we're experiencing now is a schoolroom, that we're gods who are being educated through being humans, and that we are co-creators, and that all the different holy figures that have ever lived, including pagan ones and Christian ones and Muslim ones and American Indian ones and anybody you could possibly name on Earth that's had a religious figure. Those religious figures are working together with the angels and the gods and cosmic powers to help humanity in this schoolroom we call human life. So I like that.
I like that too. I like it, and I think that's the ultimate truth. I think that is the ultimate truth. And once you recognize that, it's a whole pathway to freedom, and it's a whole pathway to accomplishment and power of the mind and power of the spirit. And I think this is what some of the great mythologies taught in their own way, their own beliefs. and what all the great mystery schools, in one way or another, call it. And I'm interested to know, what did you uncover in terms of exploring the I am? Right now, that's all part of it. But I can say that for me, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. The I am opens up yet another expression of freedom and positivity for me, to proclaim the I am, both inwardly and outwardly. What was your experience, if any, with the I am movements?
The statement "I am," how you define yourself determines what your reality is going to be. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Marcus Aurelius said that too in the past. Let me get the quote here. It's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it that matters.
Right.
And
I agree.
with the I am, so it's either I am powerful, my
Mm-hmm.
mind is clear, I'm able to see things as they truly are. And making these statements about what you are very powerful. You could also tell yourself you're powerless, that you're a victim,
Mm-hmm.
that whatever things are hopeless. You could tell yourself that, and that's the power of I am, is that you're going to believe it, and whatever you believe, that'll color the meaning that you attach to what is happening to you. So, like for instance, as you've shared, I also have certain conditions. I have spinal arthritis as well. Mine is closer to the base of the spine. I have bone
Mm-hmm.
spurs. I have bulging discs. I have a few other things going on down there with the spinal arthritis. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I too do different mental techniques, but in my mind, I see myself healed, and I've been showing incremental improvements. Some days are better than other days, but I don't give up on the picture that I'm perfectly healed. I could
Mm-hmm.
I could have succumbed to self-pity or to feeling victimized. The same as when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn more about Parkinson's, and some of what I learned wasn't pleasant, but I still feel very positive. I feel that it's a human thing. Parkinson's disease is one of the fastest growing um, neurological disorders afflicting the earth, especially in our country. So that
Mm-hmm.
in the same boat as very many people. So at the very least, I'll understand a big chunk of people, and I'll have compassion toward them that I may not have had before, or a greater understanding that I may have not had before. And I
Mm-hmm.
look to see who's beat this or who claims to have beaten it, or people who've lived full lives with it. So I know that it's possible. So it gives me something to work on, something to visualize and to work towards. And of course, like with spirituality and like with diet and so forth, not all these different accounts agree. And I don't know what'll work for me, but I have the time. As long as I breathe, I can try them all and see what works best for me. And go by what works best and abandon what doesn't work best, but share what I experience, because it might work for somebody else. And what I find works for me might not work forever, and I might have to revisit it. Like with my diabetes type 2, I thought I found the perfect
Mm-hmm.
diet years ago, and everything was going great. My blood sugar was low through diet
Mm-hmm.
without medication. It depended on nut butters for calories and for protein. And then
Mm-hmm.
one day I woke up, I had my nut butter and my blood spiked. And now I could only have nut butters maybe once or twice a month, a tablespoon or two,
Mm-hmm.
and without it spiking. If I have more than that, my sugar will spike. So I needed to try everything again to see what spiked and what doesn't spike. And I know that's going to happen again and again as long as I have life. And it could go really well for a while, and I'll lower my numbers and everything will seem healthy until the day that it doesn't. And with exercise, my routine will keep working, my muscles will be growing, I'll be stronger and more flexible and more agile. And then one day I'll do the same exercise and nothing will happen. And then I'll start losing some of the muscle I gained. So I'll have to experiment and do it again. And that seems to be part of the process of life. And I can look at it like a new challenge or a new adventure to discover what'll work this time, or I could feel sorry for myself. The choice is totally mine, and that choice is what I tell myself, what I am. And
That exactly right. and exactly right. And that we're, again, I think we're, again, it's as simple as this. I mean, we're expressions of a mental universe, but there are no rules and regulations or controls in terms of we are co-creators of our own reality. And
Right.
if we're just taught that early in our lives, it might make all the difference in so many areas in terms of our experiences. I was never taught that the way I think and what I do co-creates the directions my life will go. If it was put to me in that way as a youth, especially in my case, I was never a very confident person. Even when I prayed, the confidence was not there. And even Jesus had said many times in many different ways, it will be as you believe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't be more plain than that. So we are co-creators. Yes, there is a divine consciousness out there. Whatever you interpret it to be, whatever you interpret God or the Creator or the creators to be, we play a part. We play a part, and the way we interpret that, our part, is expressed in the directions our lives will go. And it's not just one day, and that's another factor. We think, and sometimes I think, and when I say we, I'm speaking for myself right now, of course, but sometimes we think like children. All right, it's, as you said with the diet, right? It's this way now, this is the way I'll go. Not recognizing the fact that our bodies are still physical and they're mortal. They're affected by our thoughts, and they're also affected by the decisions we make. And as our bodies mature, they will change. And we have to look at new ways of treating them and enhancing them. That means that we are going to have to change too, in terms of diet, exercise, and most importantly, the way we think. So I think you described it very well. And, what your experiences have been.
I'm actually, I think I'll share this. I haven't shared it before, but I've been trying to figure out how to put together an organization that is kind of like a church, but not where you need to believe anything in particular. One where you're a seeker and you want to share your journey with other people or seekers who want to share their journey. So nobody has a direct line to the universe. There's no one way to do it, and that's the only way. There's no thought that you shouldn't think. Um, and basically, any activity, because I also believe that spirituality should serve the world around us in some way,
Mm-hmm.
that if you don't resonate with what they're doing, you don't have to do it just because you are part of this journey. So
Well,
like
I agree. And
I take a
mm-hmm.
very I consider it our responsibility, if we're able, to make life easier for other people. And some people
Yes.
believe this and some people don't believe it. And I'm not saying one way is right or the other way is wrong. People can talk about it and share the perspectives and see what feels right for each person. But if I created something like this, I would want it to try to make something better for some people in the world. And it could be anything,
Mm-hmm.
whatever we pick and whatever we
Mm-hmm.
do. Like, because I believe in knowledge and the knowledge should be available right now, um, as I'm putting this together, I'm taking the health books that I'm no longer using, and I have not only my library, which is vast, my father's library, which is vast, but I don't need all
Mm-hmm.
those books anymore. So I've been giving the
Mm-hmm.
first to the communities that I interact with personally if they want it. And as you know, you and I have exchanged books a number of times.
Yeah.
And if they want it, it's theirs, and I'll send it
Mm-hmm.
to them or give it to them if they live nearby. And then if nobody wants it for my immediate circle of people that I interact with, then what I'll do is I'll give it to a library. And some libraries no longer want books, which is a problem. But my local library still takes books, so I put out like 12 books a month because 12 is one of my sacred numbers. Because there are 12 Olympians, but there are also 12 many other things and many other people's spirituality. So
Yes.
those 12 books, whatever's left over from them, the people who work with me directly didn't want, I give them to my
Hmm.
community. And then if somebody wants them, they could pay a quarter or 50 cents or a dollar at the library. That'll help the library out with their mission of spreading knowledge. And they'll get a book for practically nothing. That might help them in their journey or get them further along or open their eyes to other possibilities. So that's what I mean. I'm not pushing a particular book or way of doing it on anybody. I'm just sharing knowledge that, and non-committing to how valid the knowledge is. It's just this is information that you can take and you can decide for yourself. And then I'm making it either directly available or I'm making it available in my community. And people can buy or not buy the books. There's no, you have to read this book and you have to do this because you belong to
Exactly.
our group.
Well, I think that's the exciting part of what you're describing.
So maybe we could have more discussions about this and maybe think up something as a way to do it. So far, a few people have been resonant with that idea. So I'm in
Hmm.
conversations with them as well. And that would be the thing. Learn about other beliefs from people who practice those beliefs. Be open to questions. You don't have to agree with what the person was saying. What do you call it? They're not evil because they see the world through a different cultural lens,
Right.
or spiritual lens
Hmm.
you do, and you just want to understand. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do anything.
Hmm.
Just remain open so that you could understand what the person sees from where they're standing and where they've stood and why they're going the way that they're going. And if nothing else,
Well,
you could talk with more
mhm.
people because you'll have a basic understanding then.
Well, I like your idea. I think it would be great to seriously consider a concept of a center for spiritual knowledge, if you will.
Right.
That's one title we could use. But where so many, just thinking about that gets me excited because I want to learn as much as I can from everyone's practices and journeys. So for me, it's a great concept, and yeah, I think it's one that should be explored. But I want to share quickly, if I can, my own, the techniques I use in terms of new
Sure.
thought, my new thought sessions. These are some suggestions that I personally recommend. I stay with them because I think they're effective. The number one practice is voice and journaling. So you want to speak your affirmations, and we all should have an affirmation journal. Some may call it whatever you want to call it, a prayer journal, an affirmation journal. Uh, I like to affirmation journal myself, but everybody should be writing down their affirmations, their goals. So we should voice and journal. But I think both are essential, and there is energy in both. Affirming out loud is also essential. So you want to affirm where your goals are, whether it be health and healing, whatever the case might be, whatever your goals are, whatever you're creating in your subconsciousness, which will become your conscious world. Uh, Also, affirm whatever it is that you're seeking as if it's already yours. All of the masters in New Thought taught this. Uh, and I think that's essential in Scripture. And again, I look at the Bible. Of course, we know the Bible's been manipulated and written and rewritten many times, but to cast it out completely, cast out any spiritual book completely is a mistake. And I like what it says in Hebrews. Faith is the substance, and I love this, of things hoped for. Hebrews 11:1. A faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things unseen. Boy, I'll tell you something. That one statement, if you sit back and think about it, wait a minute. There is an invisible substance that may create everything around us and within us. Am I acknowledging it? Am I acknowledging that possibility? The subject of things hoped for and the evidence of things not yet seen, but are about to be seen. And that's true in our reality. So I think that statement alone, coming from Scripture, if you will, is a clear example of what our goals really should be and what we're capable of. And I think that's clear. So I think writing our affirmations, speaking our affirmations, journaling is extremely important. And also, when an affirmation has been manifested, I would write a word or two of gratitude. In other words, my neck is better today. My neck has been better this week. My shoulders have been better this week. I am grateful. I am grateful. But journal is so important. So verbalize your affirmations, write your affirmations. And I think that's so essential. So I'd like to share a few affirmations tonight, three
Sure.
simple ones. I would encourage everyone to sit back, try to relax the muscles in your body, relax our minds, if you will. And then when we're ready, we simply speak these words. I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy. We can do it 3 times. I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy. I am pain-free, I am pain-free, I am pain-free. I am pain-free, I am pain-free, I am pain-free. The third one, I am happy, I am happy, I am happy. I am happy, I am happy, I am happy. I am happy, I am happy, I am happy. Those are 3 affirmations I'd like to put forth for tonight. 3 times each one. Write them down 3 times, speak them 3 times verbally. And already you're changing your energy. You're changing the energy around you. You're changing your expectations are moving higher. They're becoming lighter. They're becoming a source of reality, if you will, because you're speaking them into reality. We just spoke our consciousness, this part of our consciousness, this part of our expectations into reality. We just spoke them into reality. I am healthy. I am pain-free. I am happy. I am healthy. I am pain-free. I am happy. Let's start with those for tonight. And then hopefully in our next session, we'll move on to even more expansive affirmations.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was awesome. I'll repeat mine that I started off with and give some directions for that too. If something proves humanly possible, then I too can attain it. And say that to yourself as you're relaxed. I usually like to repeat my affirmations first thing in the morning and then before going to bed. I do silently inside my head so I don't wake anybody up. Then I use my imagination to imagine the picture that is in my head completed and working very well. And sometimes if you do that, you'll notice elements that may surprise you. Or And then as opportunities pop up in your life, you'll know which ones will lead you closer to the perfect picture, and you're more likely to choose them. So that's the exercise I'm leaving you with. And I just want to let you know that some of Michael's affirmations are affirmations that I also practice in my own way, which I will share as we progress on this journey. And again, thank you, Michael. You're an awesome companion on this journey, and I'm looking forward to the next step in this adventure.
Oh, you as well. And I know that we're lifting up many lives even now as we're sharing these beliefs and these techniques with others. And they can simply take them and expand their world as they will. And that's what we're called to do at the end of the day.
And if
So I
anybody's
thank you
interested,
for
go ahead.
I thank you for opening up those pathways for us.
My pleasure. And if anybody wants to join this journey, please leave comments in the video below, and I will answer the comments as quickly as I possibly can. Thanks again, everybody. Many blessings, and have a wonderful night and a wonderful day and week ahead.
Blessings to all. Thank you.